Привет, Tanya. This is Two Mats Stuck in Conversation. This is episode 13. My name is Matthew Hector.
And I'm Matthew Gallant.
Last week we spoke about productivity frameworks, discipline versus motivation. Gallant, what's our Instagram?
It is at Two Mats Stuck in Conversation
Indeed.
on Instagram. Also check us out on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yeah. And we talk utter prat, nonsense, talk, whatever you want to call it. And who are we, Gallant? Do you know?
We are two UCT students. I am a second year med student. Hector is a
Second year information systems student. I had to think about that.
Yeah, you have to think about that pretty hard. But you're changing soon, boy. You're changing
Hopefully.
soon.
It's the 22nd of July and it's 10 to 10. We've literally tried to start this thing like 2 or 3 times. It's like an old car, this podcast. We still haven't gotten it right.
Indeed.
Okay.
It's only been 13 episodes.
Okay. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Dun dun. That's the sound.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the lockdown recap. So every week we give a little bit of an update with regards to the number of cases in South Africa, just to use as a time capsule of sorts. So right now, on the 22nd of July, there are 382,000 confirmed cases in South Africa, 195,000 recovered, and 5,173 deaths. Right now, Gauteng is the epicenter with 87,000 confirmed cases. Close behind it is the Western Cape with 76,000 cases. Hector, can you guess where South Africa ranks in the world right now?
Last time I checked it was 5th. Have we moved?
We are still 5th in the world. That's not a nice thing at all. But the nice thing is we have the least amount of deaths in the top 5.
At least we're in the top 10 of something.
So let's move into our music recap. What are you listening to, my good sir?
Nothing new, just playing my personal radio station on Apple Music when I go sleep. Gallant hates the fact that I listen to music when I go sleep, but that's his thing, not mine. What are you listening to?
Absolutely nothing. I've been listening to the Get Up mix on Apple Music on repeat when I run. I'm not going to do much running. I hurt my Achilles heel. Achilles tendon, if you will. It hurts so much. So I'm not going to run for the next couple of days. But that's my life with regards to music.
Yeah.
What you watching in terms of movies and series, my good sir?
Before we get into that, it's sort of related. My younger brother, Caleb, just put up his first YouTube video. Go check it out. He's called the Ken the Baker Hector. Go check it out on YouTube. What am I watching? I just finished The Blacklist season 7. And it's the last episode of The Blacklist season 7 was missing shots because lockdown started in the US, right? So they did this cool thing where for all the shots they missed, they had an animator come in. And it's almost like this cool transition between real world and like a cartoon world. It's actually really, really cool. So I highly recommend, even if you don't watch The Blacklist, to go check out the very last episode of season 7. Other than that, I'm also watching 100 Humans. It's a Netflix series where they take 100 humans and they run social experiments to see, how we socialize and whatnot. Other than that, it looks like it's all you. What are you watching?
Okay, so right now I'm watching Hotel on Showmax. There's 4 seasons of this amazing Afrikaans show. It's like a mockumentary of sorts. Not like The Office, but it's something really just unique and funny.
Is it kind of like a mockumentary, like Modern Family is kind of a mockumentary?
Yeah, something like that. It's a more Modern Family than like The Office, for example. And there's 4 seasons, and I'm finally getting around to the 4th season now. So I'm loving that. I finished this amazing show called Umbrella Academy. I finished season 1 on Netflix. Season 2 is coming out July 31st. And Umbrella Academy is about so apparently on this day in October 1989, there were 71 or 40, I think it was 43 babies born miraculously at the same time. But the mothers weren't pregnant that morning. So some of them just magically got pregnant on that day and gave birth on that day. And so this billionaire tracks down 7 of these kids, adopts them, and finds that they all have some form of a superpower. And he forms the Umbrella Academy, which is kind of like the X-Men. And
Okay.
everyone should watch it because the show doesn't take place. The show takes place when they're all adults, where all the kids are adults, and the grandfather or the father just committed suicide, and they're all there for like the funeral and whatnot. There's time travel. There's supernatural things. It's beautiful.
Is it well
Umbrella
done?
Academy.
Is it a well done series? Or, yeah, it is a
Well
series,
shot, well shot, well written. Generally, it's genuinely what's the word? Gripping.
And the acting?
Acting is brilliant. Ellen Page is in it. If you know Ellen Page,
Say sure.
they have a CGI monkey in it. Monkey Butler. His name is Pogo, and the CGI doesn't look too cheap, which is great.
That's nice. That's nice.
That's nice. It's very nice. And I also watched a film called Six Underground, which is basically a dumb action film.
I like Six Underground. You say dumb action film because you don't like generic action films.
There's no substance to it.
It's for people who like fast cars, guns blazing, fighting guns, brutal violence. It's great. Love it.
Look, I was in the mood for a dumb action film, so I got satisfied for that, right? But like, I'm not going to say it's a master piece of filmmaking or a master class in how to create an action film. This isn't Die Hard, you know what I mean?
Your
Six Underground.
review on I suppose you know what, it's been done, the action film, and if you're gonna make one, kind of like if you're gonna make a heist movie, you need to think of something very original. It reminds me of the episode of Rick and Morty when they just make fun of heist movies. It's hilarious.
Exactly. It's brilliant. And talking
You
about
son of a-
masterclass.
I'm in.
Okay, language. To talk about masterclass in film, I watched Her, and my boy, everyone needs to see Her. It's this film that came out in 2013, starring Scarlett Johansson as the voice of an artificial intelligence, or an operating system as they call it in the film. And Joaquin Phoenix, who everyone knows him for playing Joker in last year's film Joker. And Her is this amazing film. There's this guy, Theodore, and Theodore is currently going through a divorce, and he decides to buy an operating system. And he begins to talk to this operating system, who's voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and they start falling in love. And the operating system evolves and learns and starts getting human emotions. And this film just talks about so many things about the human condition. It talks about how intimacy works, how intimacy works between people, how we fall in love, purpose. It talks about loneliness. It talks about how does emotions work. Love is so irrational. At one point in the film, Scarlett Johansson's character, the AI says, "I love you, but for no intellectual reason. I just love you because I trust my feelings," or something like that. She says something along those lines. And I think it's just an amazing thing because they use this AI as sort of in line with the audience, trying to understand how human emotions work, because Scarlett Johansson is just trying the entire time in the film to understand how human emotions work. How does love work? How does jealousy work? How does empathy work? She's basically like an adult baby, learning these things for the first time, trying to navigate the waters and seeing what works and what doesn't. And it gives us an amazing look at the human condition. And I think everyone needs to watch it because I learned so much about what it means to be human, what it means to love someone else, and how love can be a driving force in purpose and living a better quality life, but also that there are different types of love, more than just the romantic kinds. Oh, and people fall in love with operating systems, and this is a normal thing, because this film is set in the distant future, probably like 2030. By the way, they all wear these AirPod type things, and they all talk to these computers, and this is written in 2013 when no one spoke to Siri like that. but now everyone speaks to Siri and Google Assistant like that, so it feels kind of relevant now. But that's my rant on her. It's a brilliant love story.
Catch us in 2 weeks' time. We're going to be talking about love and relationships.
Yeah, you
I
should
don't wanna
watch
get
her.
into it.
You should watch her, and then we can talk about it.
You've definitely got me hooked. I'll put it down on my list. That being said, you looking for new series, I hear?
I am looking for new series. I don't know what to start. Right now.
If you have any series or movies recommendations, especially if you want us to review something, do DM us on our Instagram. It's at 2mats Snuck in Conversation, and we'll watch it. We'll review it. And if you want to send us requests or send us comments or anything, also DM us at 2mats Snuck in Conversation. I think that's it for that section of the lockdown recap. I want to talk about vaccines. There's a lot of things going on in the news
because we're experts.
News about and in the society, everyone's talking about vaccines. The people think we're getting closer and closer. So I asked you if you could very kindly do some in-depth research and just set the record straight as to where we stand with vaccines. So what did you find for us?
Okay. So a vaccine, just to give a definition, is a compound or piece of medicine that gives you immunity to some other infection. It basically trains your immune system to recognize a bacteria or a virus that when you do get infected, like the effects of that disease aren't that great. And so the whole point of the coronavirus vaccine is to help decrease the effects of the disease and decrease mortality, right? So right now, there are 165 vaccines in production across the world, right? Of which 27 are in human trials right now. And I'm pretty sure you heard about the VITS vaccine. VITS is going on. We figured out the vaccine, whatever.
I have not, no.
Okay, well, VITS is going on a while ago, going on about how they have a vaccine and they're starting trials. But it's not actually their vaccine. It's the University of Oxford's vaccine that VITS is just collaborating with in the University of Oxford to run clinical trials in South Africa. So that's happening on the African continent. And there are different ways we're trying to create a vaccine, right? There are different ways to build immunity, which is why I think most people are confused by it. They don't understand why we're taking so long to get the vaccine, right? And the thing is, when you have a vaccine, you want to create a certain response in the body. And that is, you want to create these things called antibodies. They're the best form of protection. Them and what they call cytotoxic T cells, or basically T cells that can find damaged cells and then kill it. Right?
Yeah.
So the antibodies and what they call CD8 T cells, which will find any of your cells that are infected with the virus and kill it. And so there's something called genetic vaccines, which is when we give you a piece of the coronavirus DNA, or gene, to be more correct, and hopefully that will create an immune response. So how that basically works is we give you some RNA, a piece of the coronavirus genes, and then it trains your body to create sort of false copies of the cell of a coronavirus virus, I guess.
Is that kind of what they do with the flu vaccine?
No, the flu vaccine will actually give you a deactivated version of the flu, and that's what they call a whole virus vaccine, which is basically we give you the entire virus, just a weakened or inactivated version of it.
Oh, I see.
The genetic vaccine, what you're basically doing is causing your body to basically create coronavirus-like cells, and then your body detects these cells because they're foreign, and then kills the cells, and that way you get immunity, right? Another way is, which is what most people are doing, is the viral vector vaccine, which is basically you take a piece of coronavirus, attach it to another virus, and then give that other virus to you. So basically using another virus as a transporter.
Okay.
Then that's also similar to the protein-based vaccine, where we're going to give you a protein attached to another virus, and then give that to you. But what most people are looking at also are repurposed vaccines. So there's a vaccine called the BCG vaccine. It's given to every infant in South Africa the minute they're born, and it works against TB, for example. That's the main point of the BCG vaccine, and they're trying to see that that vaccine offer some protection against the pneumonia that gets brought about by COVID-19. And then Trump is obviously looking for hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine.
Yeah.
Chloroquine? It's chloroquine? Yes, hydroxychloroquine. Those are all repurposed vaccines. So right now, there's only one approved vaccine, and that's in Russia. And the Russians are hoping to get it out by August. But we don't know much about it. We don't know how effective it is. But they're just looking to get something out there ASAP.
Thanks for doing all of that. I bet you knew all of that about vaccines.
I knew some of it, but do you have any questions that you still you want to know?
Well, so other than the New York Times, okay, no, the trials that are being done at Wits, is that the only? I heard something about Russia working on a vaccine. So what's that about?
Yeah. So the Russian vaccines, what I just said, so they working on a couple of vaccines, but one of which proves to apparently bring about some form of immunity, and they are mass producing that for August. But they did that in-house. They did not collaborate with any other body or entity and things like that. But it should be noted that there's vaccines across the world. Everyone's working on it. And there's just only one human trial in South Africa, and South Africa has not created a vaccine yet.
Just to be absolutely clear, I think that's it for that.
Yeah,
I hear we've had some birth.
We have a birth. I have a nephew now, people.
Congratulations.
His name is White. Was born 18 July. Also the birthday of the great Nelson Mandela.
Indeed.
Yes.
And I have to plug our friend Jody Wright. It's her birthday as well.
Indeed. Dude, I know too many birthdays that if I start plugging anyone but Nelson Mandela, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Okay.
No, seriously.
I'm not gonna, get into that. Other than that, I have a headline for everyone. 2MSC News.
Oh my word.
Garant is available for dates and Ancient Tales 2MSC journals. So do DM us at 2Mats Stuck in Conversation. We have a team that will vet the applicants. The team is me.
I love how you think that there are people that listen to this podcast. That they will hear this call.
Just that. I love how you think there are people that listen to this podcast.
But I mean, if you do listen to this podcast, it's probably a good thing. I don't know where Hector got this information from. I just want to live my life.
From our conversations.
Oh my gosh, stop. Can we move on? This is awkward now for me.
Move us on.
I don't know where to move us on. I've decided I'm gonna start a blog.
Okay,
and I need
why?
Because I have a lot of ideas that I want to get out, but not necessarily on the podcast. Like essays I want to write about random things I'm interested in, film or medicine or biology or the human condition. And I just want to write about it for the sake of writing about it and have something to write about. And like another way of being creative. So I think I wanna start that soon. I have no idea how I'm gonna do it. What site I'm gonna use to host it. I'm thinking either Medium or I'm gonna make my own website. And then have to figure out, what platform I'm gonna use for the website if I make my own one. But yeah, I'm excited about it.
So you brought that to the podcast, and it's still not even a role. It's just an idea.
It's an idea, but the minute I put it out into the podcast, I feel like I have to do it now.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm going to move us on to our tech update. I'm going to switch up the order for a bit because I know people are going to complain that you're speaking too much. I get those complaints when it's just like, oh, it's sometimes it's just you speaking or it's just Kalan speaking. Okay, so computers are not a thing anymore. Okay.
I mean, no, they are still a thing, but continue.
I'm talking in a very Gen Z manner, but you know how you grew up with probably like Windows 2000, Windows XP, maybe you've even played with Windows 98.
Vista, my bro.
No, that was not a thing. That didn't work. That was a failure.
No, Windows 7 mostly.
Yeah, and you know, you played around with it when you were a kid. You had no reason to use it, but you were using it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Indeed, it teaches you things when you make many mistakes on your
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah. So, you know, we grew up with laptops and desktops and whatnot. But the kids of today, what did they grow up with? They grew up with Android tablets, iPads, phones, mobile operating systems. And, you know, Apple is capitalizing on that. And, you know, they're selling the iPad as the future of computers because who still uses old school mouse click keyboard inputs, you know?
That is the way to go, apparently.
My younger brother doesn't really know how to use his computer. Does your niece know how to use a computer?
Absolutely not.
There we've just
she's
proved
pretty
it
great.
unanimously.
She's pretty great with using her like her tablet and her phone. Really great with using that. She knows completely how to use she knows how the design language works and all that kind of things. But desktops, nope, not at all. It's kind of sad, actually.
It is kind of sad. It's dying off. I think 20 years. I'm giving it 20 years.
I
I
disagree.
think it will always be around, but it won't be used by the average consumer as much.
You know, I see it working like this. I see your desktop and your phone all melting into a similar operating system with a similar design language, right? Like what Apple's doing with the Mac and the iPad right now, or what Windows has always been doing with like their various mobile versions of the operating system, whatnot. But I think there'll be that amalgamated operating system, and then there'll always be like Linux or the more hardcore operating systems always being around.
I hear you, but even
I think
in that sense, when you talk about the amalgamated operating system, it's moving towards mobile, not the other way around, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. I just hope we don't lose the same functionality and power that we used to.
Now, 5G in South Africa. What do you want to talk about with this?
There's 5G in South Africa. I was on the MTN website the other day, and they have 5G. And there's 5G in Cape Town, and there's 5G in Johannesburg. So in Joburg, it's where you expect it, 4 ways. So that's fine. But in Cape Town, you won't believe where 5G is.
Where?
Blouberg.
Why?
I don't know why.
That is the most random, arbitrary place.
You would think... I understand why. Okay, when you think 5G, you think, okay, they're going to roll it out in the city center first of all, CBD always, and then move it out from there. You know, you get to your Constantius, your Bishop's Court, you know, and then move on. But I guess they took Blouberg because there's barely any houses there, and there's open spaces, and 5G works better that way.
I suppose that makes sense. That's a good way to think about it. Or you could just be making excuses for them also.
I'm making excuses for them because Blouberg is the most random. The whole of Blouberg has 5G. If you have a 5G phone and you have a 5G MTN SIM, you'll have 5G.
What I don't understand, and this is a very different rant, which I'm going to try not to go into, but why is it that I can't get an eSIM yet? I just want a separate data contract, please.
You can get an eSIM on your Apple Watch,
but I won't get into Other than that, personally, I'm not ready for 5G. So, and by the time it does get to my area, I probably still won't be ready for 5G. That being said, I actually want to talk about Mercedes Benz for just a second. The
Yes.
S-Class, it's their top of the line car, as it has been for the past who knows. It's basically been going on since the start of the manufacturer themselves, and it's always been seen as the car of reference for what the future of car technology has to hold. And
Interesting.
they're about to release a new line of S-Class models, and they're going to be I think mostly electric. And I think
I love it.
I'm happy for the future. And it's got the whole center console is a screen, and I'm not
The
sure how I
question
feel
is,
about that.
How does it compare to my favorite car, being the Tesla?
Well, we'll see. It's not out yet. I think it looks better if you Google electric S-Class. It has, like I said, it's got the screen in the center console, just like the Tesla has. And it's this thing that a lot of manufacturers are doing now in their cars. And I think it's a cool concept, especially if the car has like safety features where it won't let you drive off the road and it won't let you crash into the cars ahead of you and stuff.
Essential features.
It's bare essentials. But that being said, it's really stupid because you have to take your eyes off the road to interact with it. Right?
Yeah. I think there's some car manufacturers doing the invisible HUD. Have you seen those where they where they do projection onto a piece of glass?
But that's mainly
which
for
is nice.
monitoring like your GPS and stuff like that and your speed and whatnot.
Yeah.
But if you want to change the radio with these touchscreens, you have to literally look where you're touching. I don't like that. But moving on. Just for reference, if any of you want to be a guest on this podcast, a lot of people ask, when can I be a guest on this podcast? Firstly, tell us why you want to be a guest. What makes you think you'll be a good guest? But most importantly, we need a topic. You can't just we can barely come up with topics for ourselves.
You can't be part of the lockdown recap. Yeah, you can't be part of the lockdown recap. You need to bring something.
That being said, Galant.
Yes, so guys, you want to be guests at 2Matt Stuck in Conversation on Instagram. DM us if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on. Just please give us a topic to go with it. We're gonna move on to the uni update. 1, 2, 3. Oof. Yeah, no, it's hectic. That is the uni update. Just to let you know, I got my marks back. It was great. And we're on holiday now, so no uni update. Hector, anything to say about university?
It's yeah, it is not hectic at the moment.
It's not.
Well, you want to reveal your marks to the world, I think, because you're.
I don't want to reveal it. I'm just saying, like, I did pretty well, way better than I would normally on campus. 'Cause like study harder. Yay.
My marks are only coming later this month. Had you asked me that yesterday, I would have said I don't even know if they're out or not, and I don't particularly care. Because we're just vibing now, and I didn't type that. Galan typed that. He himself said we are just vibing now. So I'm quoting.
We are just vibing now. Hector thinks we're vibing so much. Apparently, I
you
have time for
being
dates.
free for just a split second.
Yes, but also I feel like I've not been thinking a lot during the day. Like, I've been using minimal brain power, and what that's resulted in is me having these super vivid and wild dreams.
Sure.
Some of them feel very real, and I'm not sure if I like it. That's just me.
Okay.
Do you have a
Hello?
phone call coming in? Hi.
Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me? Hi. It's me, Michael, the Broccolio. It's been a long time, boys. I missed you very much. Now look here. And the other day I was on the toilet, right? And I was looking at my arm and I saw my Hello Kitty watch. And I thought to myself, this watch does exactly what I need to do, which is to tell the time. I love this Hello Kitty watch. It's my favorite watch. But why do people buy Rolexes, boys? Or Rolls Royces or 15-room mansions if there are only 5 people? Tell me, I want to know. Why do we spend time buying luxury items? Tell me what you think, guys. Love the show. Great content as always. Amazing work. Alright, Michael de Broccoli out. So what do you think, Hector? What do you think about this question?
So, I've never understood. Okay, you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'll never lie. I've never lied in my life. I like nice things. Okay.
We know.
I like, and it's not so much the luxury of it. I like things that are built with good quality. I don't like things that are made of cheap plastics and that are flimsy. Purely because I like sturdy products. I'm just a perfectionist, and that's why I'm the way I am. That being said, I don't understand why people buy Rolexes or Rolls Royces or 15-room mansions when they're only one person. What's your view on it?
I feel like a part of it depends. I think if you worked hard and you got to a point where you're affluent, right? I feel like there's this idea we need to go out and buy these things that are status symbols to show that we have money now, right? Sort of like a rite of passage,
Yeah.
It's sort of how all these rappers, when they make their first million, they all want to wear gold chains, right? Or a whole bunch of diamond accessories. It's like a rite of passage. So I think some people want it for the status symbol and to say, I have so much money that I can just buy a Rolex. The 15-room mansions, I don't get, to be honest, unless your entire family is going to be living there. But if there's only 4 people living in the mansion, why would you buy a 15-room mansion? It's sort of like the song Rockstar by Post Malone and 21 Savage. He says he has a 12-car garage, but he only has 6 cars.
Firstly, you don't need 6 cars.
And I just don't understand why do you need 6 cars? Why do you need a 12-car garage? Also, where are the other 6 cars to fill the garage? Did you go broke in buying the 12-car garage?
Yeah.
All these questions that are raised. But luxury items, I think it's just status, man. And if you look past the status, you'll end up just buying more functional things, things that better fit your lifestyle.
Indeed.
I think that's what you need to aim for. You need to match functionality with quality. Don't spend 20k on a watch if the watch is only going to tell you the time, when you could rather spend 9k and just like get an Apple Watch or any other smartwatch, that does more.
Yeah. And we're not saying that that's the bare minimum or that's necessarily affordable. But we are saying that there's expensive and then there's so expensive you're not actually adding anything valuable, even though you're paying more money.
Yeah, there's a curve, there's a point in which increasing your income will make your life easier, and then there's a point at which you have so much money it just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, you can get more money, but it's not going to change your life. That's what we're saying. Like, spending a certain amount of money on a car will get you a good car, but then you get to this point where you're spending 600 or between 600,000 rand on a car and 1 million rand on a car. It's not that much difference versus spending 150,000 rand on a car versus 40,000 rand on a car. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and not to get psychological, but if you have to spend money to make yourself happy, I would do some introspection if I were you. And I'm not saying that money can't buy happiness, but I am saying that if that's what you rely on to make yourself happy, I would recommend doing some introspection. I think we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. We won't talk about Apple's $1,000 Mac Pro wheels, for example. We won't talk about that. So, do you want to introduce this topic since it's one of yours?
Yes. So I was listening
this is one of yours.
I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, which is Not Overthinking, by this guy. Was a medical doctor and also a YouTuber, Ali Abdaal. and his brother Tamor. And so they run this podcast called Not Overthinking, and they're talking about understanding, and this prompted a lot of thoughts about my mind, So firstly, Hector, what does it mean to understand something?
I would guess that if you understand something, it's about, knowing why something is the way it is.
Yeah, that's sort of what it is on a very abstract, kind of like basic level, right? That's what understanding is. It's just knowing something.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I found was, there's a constant battle between understanding and memory. Understanding something versus memorizing it. And we'll talk more about that later. But when you understand something, you don't remember a definition anymore, right? You sort of can make the definition up on the spot.
Yeah.
For example, you can think about, or at least a practical example for me is the word homeostasis. When I was in high school, we had to study the definition of the word homeostasis, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically keeping whatever measurement within a certain range that is considered quote unquote normal or good. Anything above or below that range is a bad thing. Now, that wasn't a very scientific or a concise definition I just gave, but it does talk about what homeostasis is. And that's kind of the point of understanding something, is that you know what it is to such an extent that you can just bring about its essence, or the point. And like you said, it's about knowing something, right? And so to understand something is to know the concept and to apply the concept correctly every time. So think of grammar. How often do you think about how you construct your sentences?
Almost never.
Almost never. Okay, that's in your home language, right?
Yeah.
You never think about past tenses or where do you put the adjective and the time and
Yeah, you really
and all
don't
that.
look at the analytical of it.
You don't think about the analytical part of language at all. You get taught it, but you don't think about it when you're talking in regular day-to-day life. And so grammar is an example of, I understand this concept of how to form a sentence, and I just stop thinking about the definition or the rules, and I just apply it correctly. And so I would say you understand grammar.
Yeah.
So that's point number one about understanding something. Okay.
Okay.
But there are also different levels of understanding.
Sure.
Right. And there's this YouTube channel, I think it's Wired, where they do these videos where they get like a physicist or some specialist in the field to explain the concept to people of different ages.
Oh yeah, I've seen these, and they have like a 5-year-old, and they go all the way up to like a varsity student who's studying something similar or like a lower level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's Wired, but you can check me on that. But yeah, so there's different levels of understanding. 5-year-olds generally don't have a big understanding of the world, so you need to use simpler terms. Versus someone who's been studying in the field, they can understand in a much deeper, on a much deeper level. And so when I talk about this being different levels of understanding, it's like, can you recite a definition, or can you explain so well that you can create a definition? Bringing back this idea of definition again, right? So I was thinking up some ideas of this, and as your mother always told you, if it's cold outside, you need to wear a jacket, otherwise you'll get sick.
Always.
Right? They always, like your grandma, they always tell you, wear a jacket, it's cold outside, you're gonna get sick.
Yeah.
And we all understand this because we see there was a time we went outside without a jacket, we got sick, and so we accept this. We understand that you need to wear a jacket when it's cold,
Yeah.
or you'll get sick. That I let's say that's like level 1 of understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Level 2 would be understanding why it is you get sick. So now you're asking yourself a deeper question, right? So you might say, okay, if it's cold outside, certain bacteria and viruses might thrive better in the cold weather. That's point number 1. But also, if it's cold outside, my body's temperature is going to change rapidly. We're going to disrupt homeostasis, and then we're going to, get sick and increase our risk of getting sick. That's a very convoluted, very superfluous way of putting something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it also shows a deeper level of understanding. So in order to understand something, you always need to ask the questions why.
Yeah.
Why that is, why that is, why that is. Do you want to talk about the quadratic formula?
I mean, we can briefly talk about it because it's like it's a formula you always learn in high school. You sort of memorize it. But as you were talking to me about, like, obviously you can derive that formula by multiplying it out, right?
Yeah. So that's like in high school, like the first one of the, like, a good example of understanding something is, like you just said, the quadratic formula. So often we just accept that we know x equals minus b plus minus b square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, whatever. That we just accept that that's the quadratic formula, and if we see a quadratic equation, we just use that formula to solve it, right?
Yeah.
We just accept it. But you'll find that often our teachers will give us a test or a question, and they say, okay, solve this sum. And you'll end up solving for the quadratic equation. And you'll find that, okay, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And if you try and solve for that and try and simplify that equation, you'll get the quadratic formula.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're like, oh my word, this makes sense. I understand why the quadratic formula is the way it is and why it works. Because you have this deep understanding.
There are some math students right now going, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? Me, I forgot. I actually don't know what I'm talking about.
That's the point. We are qualified to talk about everything except what we study.
Yeah. So I pitched this idea to you and about understanding and letting it be this week's topic. And then you spoke about high school.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
So, a lot of high school is just, here's a whole bunch of facts, study it by heart. Like, I remember in bio, our bio teacher would give us the old memos from old past papers because they always ask the same questions. If you learn the points, the key points that they look for, you have the 10 out of 10 mark answer, basically, right? And you're told to just learn it and recite it. But you never really understand anything that you're writing down.
Yeah.
So, and that's why when you get to varsity, where it's like, okay, you've learnt all those facts. Now it's time to show us that you understand it. You get thrown off. Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% correct. Like, I think of, like, yes, look at the biology. Like, it's just, if you study the work, don't have to understand the work. If you can just study the memos and, like, spit the memos back out onto paper during the exam, well done, you've passed the exam and 100%. You're apparently a super smart individual. But you have zero understanding. Now, I'm not saying this is the entire high school situation. I think in maths, you have to have some level of understanding. In English or Afrikaans, any language you do, you have to have some understanding. And even in physics, I think there's a level of understanding that you need.
Yeah.
But a large part of high school and the schooling system is, can you remember these facts? If you can remember these facts, you will be rewarded. Which is kind of wrong. So I went to when I went to university, we had to learn this thing. We had to learn about the subject called biochemistry, and there were all these like flow charts and diagrams and a whole lot of content. And our lectures are always like, understand it, because this work was just too much to study. And so for the first time in my life, I had to force myself to understand the concept, like deeply understand it, so that when I get to the exam and they ask me very difficult random application questions, I have to be able to do it. And so then this also got me thinking, how does memory compare to understanding? Do you want to talk about that for a second, Davis?
It's, understanding is not as easy as committing something to memory, because with trying to memorize something, all you have to do is that whole read, write, recite vibe. It's almost like learning the rhythm, if you will. But understanding is a much more, you almost need to put yourself in the position of the person that came up with that fact that you just learned, so that you can see why they concluded with that statement. And in so doing, if you understand why they came to that conclusion, then I think you've reached that sort of understanding. Like you say, you can pull the definition out when you need it because you understand how
Indeed.
it works. I think I need to
Uh,
mark that.
One man who understood what it meant to understand something was the physicist Richard Feynman, who was known for being a great teacher, and he could like summarize really complex scientific concepts into very simple language in his lectures. And he would like use these simplified drawings and stuff to emphasize very simple things. And this brought about something called the Feynman technique, right?
Yeah.
Which is a way of testing your understanding, which is very simple. If you think you understand a concept, you only really understand the concept when you can teach it to a 5-year-old, and that 5-year-old can teach it to you back.
Yeah.
Like they must be able to understand it. And people ask, okay, why 5-year-old? Why a child? And the reason is that if you explain to a child, you can't use big words or jargon, or you can't really hope that they have a background knowledge of this very complex field, right?
Yeah.
So you can't hide your understanding. You can't use their understanding to hide the fact that you don't understand. When you teach a child, because you can't use big words or jargon, whatever. So teaching a child is the best way to show that you understand something. And there's a whole bunch of other techniques, which they spoke about in the podcast to sort of test the understanding in ways to actually bring about understanding in your daily life. But this is one I learned from a I think it's either like a TUT leader or someone on campus, either a lecturer or a facilitator taught me this one. And this one is it's called Learn One, Do One, Teach One. Have you heard of it before?
I have not.
Okay, so Learn One, Do One, Teach One is a way of basically understanding something. So basically, Learn One means you have someone teach you the concept, right?
Yeah.
And you say, okay, cool, I hear what you're saying, done. Immediately after you learn one, you need to do one. In other words, put that concept into action. Actually test it out and test your understanding. See what you do and you don't understand. And then once you do that, you realize, okay, I didn't actually understand this concept. Go back, find the gaps in your knowledge and close the gaps in your knowledge. And then teach one, which means now you have to teach your newfound knowledge to someone else who has never heard the concept before. So if you constantly get into a habit of learn one, do one, teach one, then you'll be set for life. It's sort of like a recipe. Your mother can teach you a recipe. Cool. Then you need to actually do the recipe yourself and see if you can get it right.
Yeah.
Okay, didn't get it right. Whatever. And then you teach someone else the recipe. You give someone else the recipe and say, oh, wait, be careful when you need to beat the eggs this certain way.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That's the point of teach one.
So
So
by
that's one.
doing that process, that's how you learn how to understand it.
Indeed. Learn one, do one, teach one. And that sort of links to this. I've never heard of this concept before. Constructionism. Have you heard of it before?
I have not. No.
Okay. When I heard about this in the podcast, it completely blew my mind and changed a piece of my life. Okay. So constructionism is basically forming an understanding from nothing. Okay.
Okay.
So to explain it, they use this this analogy. So let's imagine you're in a dark room, right?
Yeah.
Pitch black room, you can't see anything. Okay. You're basically blind. And they say, okay, we're going to let you walk around the room for like 5 minutes, feel around and try and understand what's going on in the room, what's in the room, what stuff can be found, how does the room look, okay? Yeah. But you can only use your hands and you can only feel around. So basically, that means you're walking around this room and as you're feeling around and you're interacting with your environment, you're getting an understanding, right?
Yeah.
And by the end of that 10-minute session, for example, if you just walk around the room blindly and feel around, you'll find that you actually know more about the room because you interacted with it and you knocked into walls by accident and you stubbed your toe on the table and you made all these mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And because you felt around, that you know more than if, for example, if I gave you an image of the room and I said study the room that way, right?
Yeah.
You'd probably forget what the contents of the room in a day or two if I gave you an image. But you won't forget if you actually walked around the room blind, right?
Yeah, that reminds me of two concepts. Kind of like they say the best way to learn to drive is to get behind the wheel.
Yes.
And many times in matric, when I needed to learn a concept that I didn't understand, I would just do the examples without knowing what I'm doing, and by checking my answers, I would figure out how to get on the right track and figure out, learn to understand the concept by directly interacting with it.
Yes. That is exactly what constructionism is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there are ways schools bring about constructivist learning, right?
Yeah.
So like projects and PAT, for example. I know for IT they gave us a PAT and it was massive, dude. It was like this 6-month project, right? Where they said do all these various things, and I had to teach myself the work, and then I had to apply the work myself. And I felt like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. Why would they throw me in the deep end like this? Why can't they just, teach me what I need to know instead of forcing me to do this unnecessary project, right?
Yeah.
That's how I felt. But by the end of it, I was like, okay, I actually know how my code operates and functions. I understand how everything works. And I wouldn't have gotten an understanding had someone taught me it. I sort of had to learn it.
Okay.
So that's constructivism.
So yeah, they do that a lot with information systems and with linguistics. I find that by constantly doing projects, yeah, I definitely learn the content faster, especially because there's that deadline and you just have to do it. And at the end of it, then you really do understand the work. So tell me about your university experience, though.
So university takes constructionism, which is very minimal in high school, right?
Yeah.
There's maybe like 1 or 2 projects, and turns it to the max. And they just throw you assignments and projects all the way. And I think through studying or through reading up about constructionism, I've started to see a bit of the madness, like understand a bit of the madness of giving us so many assignments and projects and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It does make learning a bit better. It depends on the topic, of course, but sometimes assignments and projects actually make for better learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one way I was thinking about constructionism in my own studies is dissections, right? I remember like the first day we said, oh my word, are you guys not gonna help us dissect our cadavers?
Yeah.
Like we're gonna mess up, we're gonna break the person, right? Like we're gonna totally mess up. And they said, no, you need to mess up, you need to like totally do the worst thing you can do, right?
Okay.
Make all these mistakes, cut into structures, truly make a mess. And at first I didn't understand this. I'm like, you know what? Boys don't come frequently. These are like really rare resources. Why are we messing it up? Quote unquote messing it up, if you ask me, right?
Yeah.
But I learned that through throwing us in the deep end and not teaching us even how to hold a scalpel or how to cut or anything like that, we suddenly learned how to be our own surgeons, and we learned how to preserve structures on our own, and we learned how to cut but not too deeply, and we made all these mistakes. I'm telling you, dude, I completely ripped up my cadaver's gluteus maximus, like bad, like they asked if I was a butcher or a med student. So, but you make these mistakes and then you learn from it, and that's constructionism at work. That you're basically learning the anatomy from the ground up and trying to find understanding from the ground up, and I think that leads to a deeper understanding and better memory.
Dissections sound like fun, actually.
It is a lot of fun besides the smell.
Yeah, I would get very nauseous, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I have smelled the smell.
Yeah, it's not great.
Yeah.
You haven't smelled adipose tissue, my man.
No. I have smelled a very small
adipose
portion.
tissue is fat, for those who don't know, and it smells fatty, for lack of a better word. It's bad.
It sounds like you don't quite understand the smell. Anyway,
I don't quite understand the smell, but hopefully one day I'll figure it out by smelling more smells and getting a deeper understanding of smelling.
on that note, I think we will leave it there. Last week's episode, as we mentioned earlier, productivity frameworks and the discipline versus motivation. So basically, quick, if you don't know what that is, we just talk about ways in which you can be productive. And it's, do you need motivation, or must you just be disciplined and get stuff done? Go check it out.
Or do you need both?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. Check it out for
Or
the
do you need
answer.
both? Go check out Instagram. That's at 2Matt Stuck in Conversation. Check us out YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. A whole bunch of other places.
Indeed.
Please DM us with any questions.
Yeah. Like and subscribe and comment. And and leave us a review on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And if you're wondering if we're qualified to talk about these things, do write to us at Stick It Up Your Arse, of course. And you know what? That's it for 2 Matt's Stuck in Conversation. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Good night, people.
Good night.